You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Brommer018. Link in the description. Do it now. Hello everyone, Brommer18 here. Thank you for joining me in what is another FIFA 20 feature. Another part of our FIFA 20 Custom Tactics series, a series where I show you how to recreate and adapt real life systems in FIFA 20 so that they will actually work in game. Today we'll be taking a look at Antonio Conte's 3-5-2 system with Inter Milan, the system that has thus far, as of recording this, seen him take Juventus right the way to the very edge in the title race, and has bringing a lot of success to the team so far, and has proven to be very effective, not just for Inter Milan but at all the clubs he's been at in recent times. So very much, first of all, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the formation and we'll change a couple of positions as well. Then we'll go into the player instructions and I'll explain everything there is to know there, and then finally we'll look at the tactics. So first off, you're going to change to you're going to set it to a 3-1-4-2 formation. But then we're going to do a couple of things. One thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower these a little bit. You don't need to do this. This is something that I just personally do as a bit of an OCD issue. I don't like those right and left midfielders being out of line with the midfield. I just like to drop them back a bit. Don't worry if you don't want to. It won't change anything. And also we're going to move Christian Eriksen here up to the centre attacking midfielder role. I'll explain more when we come on to his player instructions, but you know, as an advanced central midfielder, you want to get into those pockets of space, and he's more likely to do that as a cam rather than as a central midfielder. Finally, what we'll also do with Barea is we'll also move him out a little bit and change him to a right central midfielder rather than a central midfielder. And again, I'll go into that in more detail when we come on to those instructions, but you know, with there being only one player on each side rather than a winger and a fullback combination, obviously you want to get some support out to him. With him being a right central midfielder, he's going to drift into those wide areas a little bit more and just provide support for, well, in this case, Victor Moses. So that's it for the positions. We can move straight on into the instructions now. We'll start off with the goalkeeper and work our way up the field. So first off with Handanovic, you're going to change saving on crosses to comes for crosses. It's quite hard to defend crosses and corners in this game, so with the keeper being more aggressive in those situations, it will relieve a bit of pressure off you. Plus, you know, they're quite heavily protected in FIFA, so you know, it just helps out in those situations. And saving on the box, outside the box, keep it on balance. Inter Milan don't play a tremendously high line, to be honest with you. They don't have to instigate an extreme type of press because that's not how they play. So there's no real need to change him to a sweeper keeper. If you want it just as that sort of extra layer of protection, then you can do that, because you know, if you want to be better safe than sorry, then that's fine. But you know, balance you will get away with because it won't really be much a problem. So yeah, that's fine. In terms of the centre backs, you don't have to change anything at all. One thing I do talk about is keeping interceptions on normal. You don't see much of an upside if you change it to aggressive, whereas you will certainly find that their stamina will decrease a whole lot quicker. And if you change it to conservative, you're going to be a little bit too passive. So keep them on normal unless, you know, I specify otherwise, but you won't need it in this system. So that's very quickly sort of completed the back four. We can now move into the midfield where it gets a little bit more complicated, but don't worry, I will explain them all to you. So first off, we do have Brozovic here. He's more of the pivot and the deep lying midfielder out the free, whereas the likes of, you know, in this case, Eriksen and Barea, of course, since Eriksen has come in, Barea's come back into full fitness, you know, they push at the field a bit more and get into those more further forward areas, whereas Brozovic, you know, will remain strictly in those defensive positions and be a possession-based pivot as well. So with attacking support, you obviously want him to stay back, so he can fulfill that duty of being the pivot. And also with defensive behaviour, you want to change this to man mark. Now, not only are you trying to sort of counter the fact that, you know, midfielders don't really follow their men in FIFA 20. It's a bug that they still haven't fixed, but also you're trying to replicate the man press as well. In there's some you know, there's certain situations where Inter Milan do press, what you'll find it's more of a man press. So rather than cutting the passing lanes, when one player goes to press, the man in possession on the ball for the opposition the other players will be marking their men. So you're just trying to replicate that as much as you can. You know, with him being a defensive midfielder, it does allow you to do that. And for defensive position, you actually want him to cover centre. The wing should be covered not only by these two, but also the two further forward midfielders as well. And if push comes to shove, one of the centre-backs, the right or left centre-back, you know, can drift out into those situations should he need to. So you should be okay with him covering the centre and, like I say, being that pivot. Moving on to the next midfielders now. I think, well, in fact, we'll do the wide midfielders first. So, you know, we've got these as right and left midfielders. You can class them as wing backs if you want. It doesn't matter too much, because what you'll find in game is that because there's no fullbacks behind them, they will play the role of a wing back. So should you be out of possession, these are going to bed back in to a 5-back. And for anyone who's watched my videos on either the Atalanta system that we did the Wolves system, and also the Sheffield United system, in all of those videos, I believe I did show a little clip where, you know, we show the Inter Milan defenders, well, the right and left sided midfielders bedding into the defence, even though they are classed as midfielders. So you should have no problem with them being in that position. In terms of their roles themselves, of course, you've got to have them on comeback on defence in order to replicate that. That is fairly obvious. For chance creation, both of these need to stay wide. They are, of course, what create the width in this system, and it's very self-explanatory, of course. If you've got them coming inside, you're going to have next to no width, you know, in the tactic, and therefore it becomes very void, and you nullify one of the biggest threats in the team. So both of these staying wide. And in terms of support runs, you can actually have them both on balance. Now, it depends very much on the personnel you've got. So earlier on in the season, let's say if they had Candreva on as the right midfielder, in particular if they're playing weaker opposition, who they feel they're going to have more of the ball against, then they'd be more inclined to try and get in behind, be more attacking, be more, you know, sort of risky. And so in which case, if you are playing it in a career mode or something along those lines, then, you know, feel free to do that. Again, Victor Moses would be very good for that system as well. You know, he's got lots of pace and lots of energy, and, you know, did used to be a winger before he went with Conte at Chelsea. So, you know, you can do that as well. But for someone in particular like Ashley Young, keep this on balance. You don't want him sort of getting forward too much off the ball. You want him receiving the ball and then driving forward, you know, and working with players working off him. So you can keep that unbalanced. And for both of these, support on crosses, you want them both to stay on the edge of the box. Unlike in other 3-back systems that we have done, these guys, you know, aren't as aggressive. And therefore, you know, it's more about trying to offer that layer of protection just in case the cross is overhit, doesn't go well, etc. Teams are going to try and hit you on the counter-attack. And therefore, because you've only got one centre defensive midfielder rather than two, you know, you do need that extra layer of protection out wide, someone to cover the wing. So, yeah, both of these staying on the edge of the box of the cross will offer you that extra blanket of protection. Moving on to Barea now, of course, the right-sided central midfielder. We did, of course, mention at the start of the video, you want him coming out wide to support Moses, of course, because there's only one on this side. He's going to offer, you know, that extra layer of support, and then you can overload the wide areas. And one thing that I should note at this point, if you've got, say, the right central midfielder, he'll come out wide. Then one of these two strikers is going to be your more mobile striker, and obviously that is more likely to be Lautaro Martinez, whereas Lukaku's a bit more of a target man. So with Martinez being on this, make sure Martinez is on the left side, basically, is what I'm trying to say, because then he'll drift wide and he'll support Young in the wide areas on the left. So basically, whoever your mobile striker is, make sure they're on the left, and then obviously you'll have the right central midfielder on the right. So you've got a player on each side who's able to support the wing back and try and overload those wide areas. So it works out nice and balanced, and you've got that option on either side depending on, you know, which side you decide to attack in. So yeah, in terms of Barea's instructions, first off, we want him to cover wing. That's very important. That's what we just spoke about with Brozovic covering the centre. Eriksen and Barea will cover the wing and fill out those gaps when they need to. Again, that plays into him, you know, overloading those wide areas as well. In terms of attacking support, keep this on balanced, because if you got it on get forward, he's going to be making runs in beyond the strikers. Now, you don't want that. You want that on balance, but you want him to get into the box of crossing situations. What you'll find is it's usually him and you know, the two strikers as well. It did used to be the other central midfielder, but since Eriksen has arrived in the last couple of games as of recording this, of course Eriksen is sort of a bit more void being in the box. You want him on the edge of the area, so therefore it sort of resorts back to about 3 or 4 people in the box. So yeah, definitely get into the box, but in terms of attack and support, keep him on balance so he's not making the runs in behind the strikers. You still want it to be that, you know, rigid sort of tactical shape, and them to stick to their positions as much as they can. Moving on to Christian Eriksen now, of course, the big signing in the January transfer window, joining for a reduced price, and you know, he's going to be absolutely instrumental to this team going forward. A very, very big signing for them. First off, come back on defence. Again, fairly self-explanatory. It's a hard-working system. He wants his players to get goal side when out of possession, and you know, they're not going to leave anything to chance. Moving on to support on crosses next, we want this on stay on the edge of the box. Now with Christian Eriksen, he's very much at his best when he's picking up the ball in those areas, you know, on the edge of the box. That's when, you know, we see him so often, you know, in the past for Tottenham, you know, picking up those positions and being able to loop balls over the top or spray passes, etc. And even chipping with goals as well from the edge of the box. So, you know, that's really where you're trying to get him at his best. Now, in the past, before they signed Eriksen in January, let's say the likes of Stefano Sensi and Barre were in as the 2 sort of advanced central midfielders in this system, then you would see him getting into the box a little bit more. But because Eriksen has now joined, they're sort of, you know, tailoring that position to suit him a little bit more, as you should, because, you know, he does have that sort of quality. And so, you know, with him standing into the box, you're very much going to be able to get the best out of him in that position. So that's it for the midfield. Now we can move on to the 2 strikers. Of course, we've got the more mobile man on the left, and then someone like, say, Lukaku on the right. So we'll start off with Lautaro Martinez. First off, you want him drifting wide. So, you know, we sort of alluded to this earlier in the video. You want him to support those the wing back on this side. So you've got Barre coming out wide over here. And then in Martinez's case, because you've got Barre on the right, you've got him on the left, and he will come out and support, in this case, Ashley Young, and get into those areas. Again, you're just trying to create an overload if and when the situation requires it. Again, you're trying to adapt to the team and what the opposition defence is sort of, you know, providing, the look that they're giving you. So, you know, with Martinez drifting out wide, he's going to give support to Young and also exploit his pace as well. And that's also where you've got him on getting behind. You're trying to exploit the pace and utilise that to your advantage. And Martinez, you know, fairly pacey. But again, if you're not, you know, using Martinez, let's say you've signed with a striker, perhaps you're using another team, you know, you've got a pacey striker there, and you're trying to, you know, use that to your advantage. So, you know, regardless of who that is, as long as it's sort of someone with those similar sort of attributes and stats, then you should be all right in this situation. And also for defensive support, you want him come back on defence. Very much what you're looking for is, you know, to sort of provide that emphasis on the defensive side of the game, which, you know, is so important to Antonio Conte. But also, you only need one as the outball, and that is going to be your target man, Lukaku, the mobile striker. You want him to have lots of energy as well for reasons like this, so that he will come back on defence. Moving on to Lukaku next. First off, with attacking runs, what you want is balanced, actually. And the reason being is that because of Lukaku's attributes, he's so all-rounded. Yes, he can play the role of a target man, but he's not, you know, constantly in that shape. He's not constantly backing into opponent and, you know, sort of remaining in between the posts. He's very much versatile. And that's what you're trying to replicate with mixed attack. And the same with support runs as well, both of which are on balance. Therefore, you know, you get that sort of emphasis on him being versatile, and you're utilising him to his advantage. That's the beauty of having someone like Romelu Lukaku, is that he's so all-rounded and so versatile that you can play in this way. So that's going to be very handy to the setup and, you know, sort of playing into your tactics as well. The only thing that you are going to change here is stay forward. Like I say, you want him to be that out ball when you're trying to hit them on the counter-attack, when you want to get the ball up the field, and he's going to be there to hold up play. And then the likes of the Martinez and the rest of the midfield will run off him and support him and provide those options for him. So that is it for the instructions. Now we can move on to the tactics. So first off, with defense, you want pressure on heavy touch. Now the beauty of this system is that they're going to drop off generally unless, of course, like it says here, there's a loose pass, difficult from the defender of controlling the pass, loose first touch, etc. That's when you press. So it gives you that sort of ability to be able to not be completely passive within the game. Therefore, you know, you are still in certain moments going to be able to press, and that's why, you know, the teams that are good, like Inter Milan, like Atletico Madrid, who are renowned for being defensive but are still, you know, able to seize control of the game, is because they'll press in certain moments, and when the opposition sort of requires it, when the situation presents itself. But otherwise, they're then going to drop back, be compact, be solid, and then play on the counter. So with pressure on heavy touch, you're able to do that. Next, in terms of the defensive width, move this down to 3. Again, they're trying to stop teams playing through them, and that's one of the beauties of having a 3 back, is that you stop teams from playing through you. Instead, they're going to have to go wide, and yes, you could get outnumbered in the wide areas, but then, of course, they've got to work it inside at some point. You know, you can't win games just playing down the width all the time. Of course, you got to cross balls in, you've got to get it into central areas. You know, that's how it's going. Otherwise, you know, with them blocking out those central areas, it makes it a lot harder for them. So if they want to whip balls in, they've got 3 centre-backs to try and deal with. Same again, if they want to pass it inside and work those opening positions, they've got 3 central midfielders to try and deal with. So, you know, very much if you got it on 3, then you've got that, you know, sort of narrow shape, which is so important to this system. With the defensive line, have this on 7, means you're going to have a very much a mid-block. You know, you're not trying to look to instigate a press, but at the same time, you don't want to be too passive, as I just sort of mentioned. So, you know, with this being too deep, you are going to be a little bit too passive in the sense that, you know, you are into man, you're trying to push, you know, seize the game and seize the opening. You know, a lot of teams are going to try and be rigid and try and put 10 men behind the ball. In this case, you've got a mid-block, and with pressure on heavy touch as well, it allows you to be versatile enough to switch between, you know, a press and also dropping back and getting behind the ball. Moving on to offensively now. First off, with the offensive style, you want fast build-up. That's very much an integral part of the Inter Milan system that we talked about at the start of the video. Counter-attack is important, and that's why, you know, we talk about the likes of Martinez and Lukaku, who both have, you know, plenty of pace and stamina as well, energy to get up the pitch, but also the likes of the, you know, Eriksen, for example, in attacking midfield. That gives you that ability to be counter-attacking. Now, of course, you know, it's open to interpretation. Therefore, Inter Milan in certain games, when they're preparing for the opposition, you'll see them mix it up a bit. They do have to do that. But the thing is with fast build-up is that once, you know, let's say you've got possession, let's say you've worked the ball up the field, but then the opposition have got back fast enough, then, you know, your team will just regroup into a sort of a possession-based system. You know, it's not going to be like they're all going to be standing offside and you've got nothing to do, you know. At some point, you know, the AI does recognise that the attack needs to build up again. So, you know, don't be sort of put off by the fact that it is on fast build-up. You still look to probe your opening if and when the situation requires that. Moving on to offensive width, you want to move this up to 8, and this is very important in any 3-back system on FIFA. What you'll find is that you need them to be wide, so as you know, really to get that balanced sort of system. And the reason being is that obviously you've only got 1 player on each side, and you've got a lot of players crowding a central area. So with that width, you know, you will have the say the wingers being wide, the wing backs being in those wide areas, but you know, because you're crowded out the central areas with the centre backs, with the central midfielders as well, you know, there's that emphasis on being able to play short passes and crowding out the midfield still. In terms of players in the box, move this up to 7. Then you're going to get 3/4 moving into the box, which is going to be, of course, the 2 strikers, maybe a central midfielder in Barrea as well, and then also one of the wing backs. So, you know, that gives you that that ability to have enough players in crossing positions, which is so important to the Inter Milan system. And finally, on corners and free kicks, what we do in all of these videos is we change these to 4. Then it's going to leave you 2 men back on corners, for example, which is more than enough because the opposition only ever leave a 1-man forward. So you've got enough to deal with the counter-attack, but then you've got enough targets in the box as well, compared to if you'd have had 3. So it makes you more of a threat in those set-piece situations. So that rounds it off for this video then, guys. If you've got any questions about the system, please do not hesitate to leave a comment below and ask your question, and I will do my best to get back to you. Got lots of suggestions coming in for future tactics videos. Please bear in mind I've got a massive list and I'm trying to work my way through, and there's lots of popular ones. So, you know, if yours, the one that you want to see isn't coming out, you know, don't lose patience. I'm trying to work my way through them as best I can, so do just bear that in mind. If you aren't already, please do subscribe to the channel for more regular gaming content, and don't forget to ring the bell, hit the bell, so that you get notifications every time I upload for tactics videos such as this. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and want to see more. And on that note, we are going to finish it off there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.